And guys, I want you to listen to this for 1 minute, just 1 minute, okay? Before we go into this video.
Enoch, the man who reached the highest level of power, superior to Lucifer and all the angels. According to the book of Enoch in the Bible, he was the seventh descendant of Adam and walked so close to the Most High that it was the Creator himself who came to take him. In this way, he was elevated to heaven without experiencing death, and there he was transformed into a supreme celestial being, unique throughout the universe. In heaven, he is known as the Prince of the Presence, as he is among the closest to the Most High. He was granted dominion over the universe, and all the secrets that even the oldest angels do not have access to. The only celestial being who could rival him in power is the supreme Archangel Michael, one of the first princes and leader of the heavenly hosts. Now in the heavens, he is known by a new name, Metatron.
You know, a lot of people are not aware of this, but there's very much truth to this. Metatron is a universal power with codependent feelings. It's the Gnostic web. And Enoch was the most favored man of God, raptured into the future to bring himself up in Christ to be perfect, also suppressed from you. It's written in the oldest Bibles in the world. Stephen Quayle has wrote 46 books. And some of the most powerful books he wrote about was these facts from the oldest Bible in the world. There are a few copies left. They burnt the original Bibles for 1,300 years. 1,300 years in medieval ages. They burned every Bible they could, but there are a few left. And when you know the truth from the real Bible and what they're suppressing in the Vatican, it will astound you. Enoch wrote 100 books and gave them to Methuselah, his son, to warn us about Noah and his family, the naked drunks, the milestone and Nimrod. They were not the same. You can see that in the book of Enoch. Noah was white, snow white hair with shining blue eyes, and they were all black in that bloodline. Christ was black. You see that in the latest movie, okay, the book of Clarence. You know, there's a reason why they say, right, you're in the most deceived time in human history. Most people imagine Christ as a white person because they're engineered into it, okay? But see, the first white family was the tribe of Dan, come from Denmark, 12,000 years old. The tribe of Dan was the Anunnakis, okay? They came from heaven to earth, fallen angels, and created Noah and his family. That's why Noah sat up straight away and spoke immediately and could walk within a couple of hours. No one else could do that, not even Christ himself had those abilities. And Christ doesn't mention Noah for a reason. And when you talk about Moses, Moses was given 10 commandments and smashed them and then given a second 10. It's a known fact. Christ gives another 10 on top. Like love thy enemy and love thy neighbor, he gives 10 commandments on top of Moses. Christ also said, what kind of God would allow all his children to starve for 40 years and have serpents in their mind without feeding them and then expecting you to sacrifice for him? That's what Christ said. What kind of God would make all his children starve for 40 years and suffer from serpents? If you look at the book of John, you'll see that Yahweh had to confine with Enoch, and he was fourth down in line. He always had to get advice of Enoch. Archangel Michael sent all the fallen angels in the abyss. If you look at the book of Enoch, Enoch sent all the angels into the abyss. As a seller's daughter married Noah. That's right, they were all Nephilims, okay? And when you go into the history, Madonna and the son of the all-seeing Horus, that resurrected from Osiris, from Nimrod, right? Christ at 24 woke up from amnesia, learned life after life, reincarnation, and said, I'm son of David, son of Abraham, with genetic memory and a genetic process. So he could command nature, divine power to command nature. And there's only a handful of people could do that that crossed over. Abraham represented the crossover. Hebrew, the crossover. Same with Moses. They had the divine power to command nature like Elijah and like Enoch, the most favourite man of God that walked with all the angels for 365 years. Raptured into the future to bring Christ himself to be perfect. And everyone lies about this. Well, that's Metatron, that you do not understand. But Christ was brought up to be perfect, taken to Egypt to learn reincarnation, life after life, then taken across to India and China to Shilan masterminds and monks and Buddhists to master his mind with divine power so he could harness the power. And then he went for a 40-day fast and crossed over for 3.5 years in a genetic memory and a genetic process. At 24, he discovered who he is and said, I'm son of David, son of Abraham. And when you wake up from amnesia and the reincarnation trap, you realise how to use your genetic process and how to think outside the mind the way he can, the way he does. Enoch was the only man apart from Thoth who was in every dimension and knew how to think instinctively outside the mind with dimensional thinking, remote viewing, mental telepathy, ESP, telekinesis, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, deja vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. And only that bloodline could do that, as written by Plato, the greatest philosopher of all time, with 15 books. Only one family tree and one bloodline could do these things and had faith in their biological genes to use their natural selection of a natural order with their natural organic molecules, with godlike power. And only a handful of people in the world today has that godlike type power in the Christ image to do what Christ can and more with divine power to command nature. Enoch was the absolute mastermind and the most favourite man of God that saved the Australian Aboriginals, and the Orbs of Light has been down there ever since the Min Lights, and they are the watchers who watch over them like the Bible. And then we have a relationship with them. The Orbs of Light comes to us like the Bible, stars within the stars. And they went through natural selection with people all over the world, through the Orbs of Light, Min Light, the watcher watch overs in Australia, that's been there watching the Aboriginals, 500 years old, that lives by their sacred secretion and by the natural gametes off the grid, 500 years old, 10 feet tall, with a double Y, double X chromosome, the same as Christ. They can resurrect, and they're not trapped in the reincarnation trap. White man crazy, white man God's crazy, and keep dying prematurely by the time they're 80, and keep coming back in the reincarnation trap, and do not know what they do, because they're trapped in personality in the mind. It's a known fact, worldwide, in DNA studies done, the Book of Life. Jeremy gives us the book Freedom with DNA. Held by 16,000 top scholars in the world, the Holy Grail of Life, with wind of breathing, the Holy Breath of Life, to restore your sacred secretion and to cross over, do everything Christ can and more. We teach the resurrection because Enoch was the mastermind of resurrection, the absolute Alpha Omega number one, who matches Archangel Michael in Metatron. And these are facts of life that no one understands. If you go to YouTube and take a look at the video in search engine, Enoch and Us, listen to a guy on this video and the divine instrument that he had with Enoch. When he went to another dimension through the porthole, the light bulb at you, the picture that tells you 1,000 words, the orb of light comes down close to you, turns into a porthole with dimensional thinking, and you go taken out of the vessel to the light in the tunnel through Jacob's ladder, and you go into the other side. That's perfect. When people die, they don't want to come back. You get a massive clarification. I went through exactly the same process on the 27th of February 2016, where divine intervention, divine power, and 3 powerful miracles were created that day to confirm this. And I made a lot of use about this, but that's not what I'm telling you. I too was selected, naturally selected, and didn't know what was going on. Went through UAPs, unexplained area phenomena, with an outside influence on our reality that we had no idea about. But through natural selection, we were taken out of our vessel through a death experience to the light at the end of the tunnel. I was clinically dead for 23 minutes in 2012 in the 212 phenomenon. Mayan calendar, ancestry, genetic memory. If you're going to understand the Mayan calendars, the Mayans' bloodline comes from the Australian Aboriginals. Most people don't know that because they know nothing about life. The world was wiped out in an Adam and Eve story. We're in the 6th one today. We're going to 6 mass extinction strip in the 6th sense for the 6th time. By 227, if you don't cross over, you'll go into extinction because it's not negotiable. We're going a new time, not of sevenfold wisdom knowledge, when we cross over back in our moral state to think instinctively outside the mind with our sixth sense in our spirituality and let go of our mentality and our personality. You can't feed two wolves at the same time. It's a known fact. You can't feed two wolves at the same time. That's why Christ was a street warrior, taught in the streets and stood against every Babylonian beast system and every religion and said they were all wrong, and he was right. We know that with DNA studies done. He only lives by the quantum mechanical relation from the Father's image to be selfless and sacrifice himself to save all his children. Innocence, totally innocence, with a relationship and a universal power, divine power to command nature. And we teach the resurrection humanity with a crossover of the great transformation movement, like the World Transformation Movement by Jeremy Griffiths, the top scholars in the whole world that hails this to be the book of life, the Holy Grail of life, and we're not breathing the Holy Breath of life. We resurrect humanity with the most powerful elect people in the whole world, warned in the Bible. Resurrection and the crossover to do every single thing that Christ can and more. And that's why I was selected by Enoch. And I've made many videos about this. The one and only. The one that came back and was coming back to resurrect humanity was selection, natural selection. And I was selected in 2016 with the most powerful confirmation on earth and the most powerful biblical signs. Believe it or not. In the biggest study done with DNA. I have the most authentic DNA in the world, and I know the crossover and how to resurrect humanity back in their primal state with genetic memory and a genetic process. Because I was deliberately put that path myself. I died in 2012, clinically dead, and went for a massive transformation for 3.5 years with DNA studies done, and sat down in 2016 on the 26th of February, the day before, with the top scholars in the world and the top think tank. And I'm one of a kind with divine intervention to command nature. And bringing someone back to life, giving 0% chance of living with 7 billboards and CCTV. And the most powerful poem written in 2003, the one and only, worldwide number 1 for 8 months. Believe me, I know how to resurrect humanity with divine power to command nature, with a God-given gift that God gives us in our DNA, with genetic memory. We can all do what Christ can and more, every single one of us, when we cross over back in our primal state and follow the woman's seed. That's right, we're following the wrong family tree. We can do what Christ can and more when we return to our innocence and go back in our childhood for a 40-day fast, the same way he did. You can take sick on magnesium and drink plenty of water. Isolate yourself. Do not eat for 40 days. Listen to the book Freedom on audio, and do win up every day with the sacred secretion to restructure yourself. Reactivate your genetic process and genetic memory with genetic repair kit, and your biological genes to think instinctively outside the mind with the sixth sense. This will reset your biological clock in the central nervous system in your DNA, the book of life, and activate your genetic process when you stop your unnatural selection and cross over into a natural selection with divine power to command nature, with the most powerful confirmation on earth, the rebirth. And when you go through the rebirth, you break free from amnesia and reincarnation trap and the voice inside your mind in the skull, that's only a personality. And you can come right out of the bezel and go to the light intel and get a confirmation yourself with the most divine power intervention. The most powerful divine intervention. Trust me, watch my followers and listen to their testimony. This is the great resurrection man to crossover to go back into primal state with a genetic process and a 3.5 year transformation in your own DNA. I went through it myself, guys, and I'm not the only one. I'm not alone. Natural selection took place, right? And started in 1960. In 1960, natural selection took place. Okay, in 2012, many people were selected through natural selection with UAPs, unexplained aerial phenomena, with ancestral genetic memory, ancestral tools by mortal beings that come back and took over our vessels. So they control our vessel from the outside in. We're not in control anymore. We died, clinically dead, and never came back. Our primordial being took over our vessel and went for a massive transformation, and it wasn't easy. But that's when we open from amnesia and discover who we really are with our genetic memory and our genetic process. Since then, I can do everything Christ can and more with my genetic memory, and so can you. When you cross over, you can do what Christ can and more with the same tools coding your own DNA with genetic memory. Enoch was the most favored man of God, the mastermind who sent all the fallen angels in the abyss. The most favored man of God that God trusts the most with resurrection, because he had to resurrect Christ and put him for a 17-year process. and sent him into the desert to find the demon head on. He sent him into the desert to fasten and face the demon in the skull, to realize he was possessed with amnesia in a reincarnation trap, trapped in the mind, in a personality with mentality. Then he crossed over and discovered who he was and said, I'm son of David, son of Abraham. And he said, the end times, it will be like the days of Noah and the days of Lot. He was a what? Son of Abraham. So what happened with Abraham and Enoch? They had orbs of light, stars within the stars. They call them fiery chariots. That resurrected them. Also took Elijah and many others up in the fiery chariots, like the Australian originals. 27 of them got taken up as well, and many others. That's why a lot of people are saying the 144,000 orbs of light, stars within the stars, are black people, giants, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years old, black people with godlike power, because they're the elderly. And the elderly has been collected for the last 6,000 years, right, with these orbs of light. Even Moses, when he died, right, the fiery chariot came down and picked him up and took his vessel as well. They were not allowed to bury him. He was resurrected as well. The great resurrection. You know, Mary, the mother, and Mary Magdalene, both ascended body and soul. It will start with a man and woman, it'll finish with man and woman. Because Mary Magdalene is a pillar of salt, the fifth element, the perfect element, the mother, right? The mother of creation and the father of creation. It will start with a man and woman, it'll finish man and woman, the two candles, the two olive trees, the two witnesses, the mother and the father, divine power to command nature. God gives you the God-given gift with divine power, and the mother gives you the divine power to command nature. So without the two tools and without the mother leading, right, when the woman seed, you have no idea what you're doing. Unless you're innocent and go back to childhood and go through a genetic process, face all your guilt factor and what you suffer from, and release everything in your mind that got you with a placebo effect on anti-clockwise. Because you're suffering so much from the human conditioning, stress, fear, and anxiety, confusion, most danger, and paranoia, and live in denial about it. Every human being on earth is suffering with their body cells going corruption during the daytime and can only appear 3.5 hours a night. Those that cross over can repair 24 hours a day with the genetic memory to preserve the enabled longevity for 1,000 years and never suffer the consequence ever again. That's happening worldwide with the genetic memory process. The natural preservation made for life for 1,000 years will recreate heaven and earth, and people's got no idea of this. So most people don't really seem to realize the Bible states there will not be another heaven and earth for another 1,000 years. 27 September 227 is exactly 2,000 years when Christ was baptized by John. 27 September 27. And that's the inflection point of no return. And if you don't create heaven and earth, there's no more heaven and hell. The Bible tells you that. Either get trapped in your mind, right, into a slavery system for 1,000 years because you give consent, okay, or you break free from the reincarnation trap and live with the tree of life for 1,000 years and live outside your mind and control your business from the outside in instead of the inside out, back in your primal state, while the rest are trapped for 1,000 years and do not know what they do and will suffer the consequences. The oldest Bible tells you you will go in a slavery system because you put yourself in that position for 1,000 years where you suffer for 1,000 years. And those that cross over will go in a timeline of sevenfold wisdom laws to live with the tree of life and never suffer the consequence ever again, with 10 times more fruit and 10 times more nutritious value, where the sun is 10 times shinier, the grass is 10 times greener, and you get all your natural abilities back, right, with ecstasy, high as a kite, in the most powerful love you've ever felt in your life. The most powerful frequencies and the most powerful divine intervention and the most powerful glory blood pouring love you that will give you the divine power to command nature with your aura and shining armor in such a way that nothing and no weapon against you can prosper. Facts of life. Those that think instinctively tune out programs and set the major documentary. Those that think with their consciousness, with their mental event, their mental process, and illusion imagination will suffer the consequences because they're trapped in mentality and not in spirituality. They have no ability to live with the ESP, remote you, telekinesis, levitation, movement, clock money, falling space and time with deja vu. They cannot do what Christ can and more and predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. They are not in the Christ image. They're trapped in the mind, in a Hollywood character, in Baal's image, with artificial intelligence and implementation, and they can't think outside the mind. They can only think with the mind and use 7 to 15% of their brain because they gave consent. Now they suffer the human conditioning, going into 6 magic extinctions, stripping the 6 sense for the 6th time, because they gave up their spirituality for their mentality and their self-centered ego, trapped in themselves, and they don't care anymore because they lost their aura and all their feelings. 95 to 99% of their feelings. So they can't feel the truth. They come to their own conclusion in the mind. With voice, mind, ultimate sign of extinction, and believe in their own truth only. And all they care about is their own opinions worldwide. Artificial human beings in post-human states, and those that cross over back in the innocent, will be given the divine power to command nature. But you must go through natural selection, and the only way you can do that is to stop unnatural selection for 40 days and don't eat, and get off screens and isolate. Take zinc, iron, magnesium, vitamin C to B12. Drink lots of water. Take methylene blue to activate to help you through this, because it will get you through this. Get the USP standards, okay, the pure product. 5 drops in water every day. Okay, it will activate your progenitor genes with we're not breathing when you push the oxygen to the holy breath of life and recreate the sacred secretion. And the sacred secretion will give you the alert, alive, waking aware of a meth effect, right, with MDMA, ecstasy feeling, high as a kite. And you adapt into this over the 3.5 years in the highest high you've ever felt and the most powerful love you've ever felt in your life, where we create heaven and earth. That's right. We create heaven and earth with 10 times more fruit and 10 times more nutritious value because we bear the right fruit. With that kind of relationship, they'll replenish nature. The future's magnificent. Like when people die, they get a clarification with the most powerful love, most powerful divine intervention, and it's so beautiful. The colors of nature and fauna, you're attached to. It's so powerful. You have a relationship with everything. And when you realize you die and cross over and come back, you realize how to create heaven and earth and to adapt yourself in the most powerful primordial state. When I was alive and the orb of light came to me, in 2016, I went into the orb of light. I was taken out of my vessel straight through while I was wide awake in dream time, just mesmerized on this day, completely gobsmacked and speechless, but I didn't die. I was taken deliberately out of my vessel in a time where time is still and preserves. And I walked with Enoch. And I've said this in many years. I've walked with Metatron. And you have no comprehension of the amount of love that you got and how much love you're given and how powerful that love is with the most powerful relationship and the most powerful high you've ever had in your life. And oh boy, it leaves you gobsmacked and speechless because you realize your mind had no idea that you could feel like this. And this is your natural feelings. That's gone. We've been molded that bad into a human conditioning. We lost our natural ability to feel this kind of love and have this kind of relationship worldwide with everything in life that creates fauna to be 10 times more fruitful with 10 times more nutritious value. And we bear the right fruit. And oh my God, your aura turns into pure love and reflects everybody around you and spreads like a virus. Now tell me, who doesn't want some of that? Well, you'd be amazed. Most people don't. They're trapped in themselves with self-centered ego. And they will never know what they're missing out on. They have no idea. Imagine the divine power to command nature and do everything that Christ can and actually bring someone back to life, because I've done it, guys. And do you know what that feels like to bring someone back to life? Holy crap. When you can heal people and you have power in your hand to do that, to create miracles that are so far beyond the mind doesn't understand. But God gives you that God-given gift. When he puts you through the transformation, when you come out of your shell in a 40-day fast, you come right out of your shell to the light internal and go through this process and be given that authority through natural selection and divine power to command nature with a light bulb at you. The picture that tells 1,000 words that come to you out of the blue. And it's not what you think. It's the last thing you think of. The mind cannot work it out. It's so far beyond the mind doesn't know. We have amnesia. The mind oppresses us. We become our own worst enemy. Okay? Our mind places games on us, and the voice of mind is sold me sign of extinction because they're only personalities. They'll tell you, do it, and give me 5 reasons why you shouldn't. But you got to listen to me. Think outside the mind. Way over and above and beyond the mind. And God gives you a God-given gift with a divine intervention. When you go back in your innocence and you remove from a vessel like this, Then you take over your primordial state in your spirituality, and you start to control your mentality and your personality and realize you didn't know what you were doing in here. And now you realize why you suffer, and you realize for the first time in history why Christ said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Because you go through that yourself and realize you didn't know what you're doing. And now you realize why nobody else knows what they're doing. And they do not know what they do. And they do not know any better, because they're trapped inside a personality with mentality in self-centered ego and oblivious at the same time and live in denial. And I'm telling you, I know it's not easy, but it's the greatest time to be alive when you go through this, right? You've got to let go of your belief systems. You've got to let go of your mentality. You've got to go on a 40-day fast, listen to the book Freedom on audio, and do window breathing every day and push that oxygen to the maximum level, right? And use methylene blue. And trust me, what happens in your genetic process with genetic memory will come to you automatically. But you've got to push hard until you get the euphoria of the extra feeling and push that oxygen and oxidize your blood to the maximum capacity, because you create the meth effect. You create MDMA so high, you're high as a kite with pins and needles while you meditate with Winnob, with your eyes shut. The third eye will take you to the light of the end tunnel and stick your head out the cave. And you'll get the most powerful confirmation that will make sense to you. And you can relate to it. And trust me, when you go through this, that's when you're saved. You go through a 40-day judgment where you go back to your childhood and you let go of everything you suffer from and every single thing you've done. You face your own guilt and go through a self-judgment. And then you realize by the end how you cross over and forgive yourself and forgive everyone else as you're forgiven like this. And you go for a massive divine intervention where God puts you right out of your shell and takes you to the light in the tunnel. And believe me, the most powerful confirmation. And from that moment, you know you're saved. You've made it. Then you go for a transformation with your mind and start to control your mind from the outside in. And then you go through the most powerful divine interventions and the most powerful influence in reality with real love, and you adapt into it and keep breathing non-stop and get that oxygen up and get this happening, because believe me, this is the greatest liberation ever known in history. And people do not know what they're doing to themselves. And they're so limited and so oppressed that they become their own worst enemy without realizing it. And they don't even care anymore. Trust me, you go through this and you do wind up and push that adrenaline to the maximum capacity to oxidize your blood. You will feel the truth and it will come to you. And you'll feel the love pouring over you and you'll break into tears. I promise you, you will break into tears. You will feel that kind of love pouring over you and you think, my God, I had no idea. But now you do. And you go through that transformation and adapt right into this in a great transformation in your DNA with genetic memory and a genetic process. And believe me, the greatest freedom and liberation is right in front of your face, and you've gone through the rebirth and the crossover, and you'll never go back. And you're saved from that moment, and from there on, you're never going to suffer ever again and not have a death experience. Trust me. Don't trust anyone else, because they're oppressing you with their own opinions, and nobody realizes. We teach the resurrection with my followers and their testimonies going through this. And we've been doing it for a long time. Do not rob yourself. Go through this yourself. And trust me, you come back here and you realize I'm the greatest father on earth. I'm the greatest father on earth that sacrificed every single thing in my life to save your ass from yourself with the great resurrection and the crossover to go back in your primordial state, and you'll have the most powerful confirmation, most powerful divine intervention, the most powerful clarification, and you can't get it wrong. Nobody can. Then you realize it's not about religious, political behavior, New Age cults, or grammar, or artificial intelligence, or every imitation. It's not what you think. It's being in the Father's image and sacrificing everything else and drop it. Every single thing you come to learn in your mind, drop it. In this 40-day fast and isolate yourself. Drop everything. and go into this, and everything will come automatically from out of the blue. And this is how shit goes. Trust me, God knew that, Christ knew that, and Enoch knew this, and I know with the most powerful DNA confirmation to back it up. We can do what Christ can and more, and you can go through the same process because we've gone through natural selection, and we're the only ones to teach the resurrection with the correct tools, with the most powerful elect people in the world, with the Holy Grail of life, the Book of Life. Jeremy gives us the book Freedom by Jeremy gives the Book of Life, the Holy Grail of life, held by 16,000 top scholars in the world and Nobel Prize winners with natural selection. It's a natural selection. When you cross over, you start to select naturally through your instinctive behavior to think instinctively outside the mind through your feelings. You never think with your mind again. You never come to your own conclusion with reasoning in your mind with any voice mind. You think outside the mind and follow your gut feeling. Survival mode, the chakra, the very preservation mode for life, that database 130 nucleosome molecules, genetic repair kits, and genetic memory with your own DNA. DNA is a book of life.